The morning sun filtered through the silk curtains of Elena Whitmore's childhood bedroom, casting golden patterns across walls that hadn't changed since she was 17. At 28, she felt like a stranger in her own home, unpacking boxes that contained the remnants of a life she'd carefully constructed in Chicago, a life that had crumbled when her investment firm collapsed 6 months ago. "Elena, darling, you must come see this," her mother, Victoria Whitmore, called from the living room, her voice carrying that particular tone that meant neighborhood gossip was about to be served with morning coffee. Elena descended the mahogany staircase, her bare feet silent on the Persian runner. The Whitmore estate had always been impressive, a testament to old money and older traditions. But today, something felt different. There was an energy in the air, a buzz of excitement that had the household staff whispering in corners. "The Hartwell mansion has been sold," Victoria announced, her perfectly manicured fingers wrapped around a china teacup. After 15 years of sitting empty, someone finally bought it. Elena's heart skipped. The Hartwell mansion. She knew it well, a sprawling Gothic revival that sat on 20 acres adjacent to their property. It had been the crown jewel of their exclusive neighborhood until the family lost everything in a scandal that rocked their small Connecticut town. Who bought it? Elena asked, though part of her already suspected the answer would shake her world. A tech entrepreneur. Someone named Alexander Kane. Apparently, he's worth billions now. Victoria's eyes gleamed with the possibility of a new social connection. "Maria saw the moving trucks this morning. They say he's young, handsome, and single." Alexander Kane. The name hit Elena like a physical blow. She gripped the edge of the marble console table to steady herself, memories flooding back with devastating clarity. Alex Kane. The boy from the wrong side of town who had stolen her heart during her senior year of high school. The boy she'd loved with a passion that terrified her 17-year-old self. The boy she'd rejected to please her family. 11 years ago, Alex had been the scholarship kid at Pemberton Academy, brilliant but poor, with calloused hands from his after-school job at the auto shop and dreams bigger than their small town could contain. He'd been everything her family despised, and everything she'd secretly craved. "Elena? You look pale, darling. Are you all right?" Her mother's voice seemed to come from far away. Elena forced a smile, the same practiced expression she'd perfected over years of charity galas and corporate events. "I'm fine, Mother. Just tired from the move." But she wasn't fine. She was drowning in memories of a love she'd sacrificed on the altar of family expectations. The boy who'd promised to take her away from all this. The boy who'd looked at her with such hurt and betrayal when she'd chosen her family's approval over his love. And now he was back. Not as the poor scholarship boy who'd begged her to run away with him, but as Alexander Kane, billionaire, living in the most exclusive mansion in town. Living next door. The irony wasn't lost on her. She'd rejected him to maintain her family's status and her own security. Now she was the one who'd lost everything, crawling back to her childhood home in defeat, while he had become everything her family had always claimed to value: wealthy, successful, powerful. Elena excused herself and retreated to her room, her mind racing. She moved to the window that faced the Hartwell property and saw them, an army of movers carrying expensive furniture and art pieces into the mansion. In the distance, she caught a glimpse of a figure directing the operation. Even from this distance, she recognized the way he moved, the confident set of his shoulders. Her phone buzzed. A text from her best friend Sarah. "Did you see the news? Alex Kane bought the Hartwell place. Isn't that your hometown? Small world, right?" Elena's hands trembled as she typed back, "Yeah, small world." But this wasn't a coincidence. This was fate, karma, or perhaps simply the universe's cruel sense of humor. The boy she'd broken her own heart to reject was now the man who could have everything she'd once taken for granted. As she watched the moving trucks disappear down the winding driveway, Elena realized that her return home wasn't just about rebuilding her life. It was about facing the ghost of her greatest regret. The man who'd once promised to love her forever was now living just beyond her garden wall. And she had no idea if he was there for revenge, closure, or something else entirely. The invitation arrived on cream-colored paper with elegant script, delivered by a courier to the Whitmore estate at precisely 3 p.m. Elena's hands trembled as she read the words. The pleasure of your company is requested at a welcome home gathering for Alexander Kane. Saturday evening, 7 o'clock. Hartwell Estate. How exciting! Victoria exclaimed, reading over her daughter's shoulder. Our new neighbor is hosting a party. You simply must attend, Elena. This could be the perfect opportunity to make connections. Elena wanted to laugh at the irony. Connections. If only her mother knew about the connection she'd already made, and destroyed, with Alexander Kane. That evening, Elena found herself in her old bedroom, surrounded by photo albums she'd discovered while unpacking. Her fingers traced over pictures from senior year, the winter formal where Alex had worn a rented tuxedo that didn't quite fit, but had looked at her like she was the only person in the world. The spring carnival where he'd won her a stuffed elephant at the ring toss, spending his entire paycheck on the game until he succeeded. She remembered the night everything changed. It was 3 weeks before graduation, and Alex had driven her to Sunset Point in his battered Honda Civic. The same car he'd bought with money from his part-time job at Rodriguez Auto Shop, working nights and weekends to help his single mother pay rent. I got into MIT, he'd told her, his eyes bright with dreams and possibility. Full scholarship. Computer science and engineering. Elena had been so proud, so happy for him. Until he'd taken her hands and said the words that would haunt her for the next 11 years. Come with me, Elena. We'll figure it out together. You could go to Harvard, or BU, or anywhere you want. We don't have to stay trapped in this town, playing by their rules. She'd wanted to say yes. God, how she'd wanted to say yes. But then she'd thought about her parents, about the disappointment in their eyes when she'd started dating the scholarship boy. She'd thought about the comments at country club dinners, the way other families looked at her with pity and judgment. I can't, she'd whispered, the words tearing from her throat like pieces of her soul. My family needs me. I have obligations. Obligations. Alex's voice had been sharp with hurt. Or are you just afraid of what people will think? The fight that followed had been devastating. Alex had accused her of being a coward, of caring more about her family's approval than their love. She'd accused him of being selfish, of not understanding the weight of family expectations. I won't wait for you, he'd said finally, his voice breaking. I won't spend my life trying to prove I'm good enough for someone who's already decided I'm not. She'd watched him drive away, taking her heart with him. 3 weeks later, she'd gone to Duke University as planned, majoring in business to please her father. Alex had gone to MIT and disappeared from her life entirely. Until now. Elena closed the photo album and moved to her computer. A simple Google search revealed the magnitude of what Alex had become. Alexander Kane, founder and CEO of Kane Technologies, the AI company that had revolutionized 3 different industries. Net worth, $3.2 billion. Featured on magazine covers, keynote speaker at tech conferences, philanthropist. There were photos of him at charity galas with beautiful women, articles about his innovative business strategies, interviews where he discussed his humble beginnings and his drive to succeed. But in none of the photos did he smile the way he used to smile at her. The boy she'd known had been warm, passionate, full of dreams and laughter. The man in these photos was polished, controlled, successful. But there was something cold in his eyes, something that hadn't been there before. Elena spent the rest of the evening researching, trying to understand the man Alex had become. She learned about his company's charitable foundation, which funded scholarships for underprivileged students. She read about his innovative work in artificial intelligence and sustainable technology. She discovered that he'd never married, though he'd been linked to several high-profile women over the years. Most importantly, she learned that he'd built his empire from nothing, just as he'd promised he would. The boy who'd worked at an auto shop to help his mother pay rent had become one of the most successful entrepreneurs of his generation. As Saturday evening approached, Elena realized she was more nervous than she'd been since her disastrous final presentation to investors 6 months ago. She'd faced boardrooms full of skeptical businessmen, given speeches to hundreds of people, negotiated million-dollar deals. But the thought of facing Alex Kane, the man she'd loved and lost, terrified her. She chose a simple black dress, elegant but not flashy. She didn't want to appear as if she was trying too hard. But as she looked at herself in the mirror, she couldn't help but remember the girl who'd worn a pink prom dress and danced with Alex under the stars, believing their love could conquer anything. That girl had been naive perhaps, but she'd been brave in a way Elena wasn't sure she was anymore. Tonight, she would need to find that courage again. The Hartwell estate glowed like a beacon in the Connecticut evening, every window blazing with warm light. Elena could hear the gentle hum of conversation and classical music drifting across the perfectly manicured grounds as she approached the front entrance. Her hand trembled slightly as she reached for the brass knocker, shaped like a lion's head. The door opened to reveal a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a professional smile. "Ms. Whitmore? Mr. Kane is expecting you. Please, come in." Elena stepped into the foyer and gasped. The Hartwell mansion had been transformed. Gone were the dark, oppressive furnishings she remembered from her childhood visits. In their place was a stunning blend of modern and classical elements. Sleek furniture that complemented the original architecture, contemporary art that somehow enhanced rather than clashed with the ornate moldings and crystal chandeliers. Elena Whitmore. The voice behind her was deeper than she remembered, touched with the confidence that came from years of success and power. She turned slowly, her heart hammering against her ribs. Alexander Kane stood 10 feet away, wearing a perfectly tailored navy suit that probably cost more than her car. He was taller than she remembered, broader in the shoulders, with the kind of presence that commanded attention. His dark hair was perfectly styled, his jaw clean-shaven, his posture straight and controlled. But it was his eyes that made her breath catch. They were the same deep brown she remembered, but now they held an intensity that hadn't been there before. They were the eyes of a man who had seen the world and conquered it. "Alex." His name came out as barely a whisper. "It's Alexander now," he corrected, his voice polite but distant. "Welcome to my home." The formality was like a slap. This was the boy who'd once called her Ellie, and stolen kisses behind the school library. Now he was looking at her like she was a stranger, which, she supposed, she was. "It's beautiful," she managed, gesturing toward the transformed interior. "You've done incredible work with the restoration. I had excellent architects. Money tends to solve most problems." There was an edge to his voice, a subtle reminder of what had once stood between them. Other guests began to arrive, local business leaders, politicians, a few faces Elena recognized from their high school class. She watched Alex work the room with practiced ease, shaking hands, making small talk, playing the perfect host. But she noticed how his eyes kept finding her across the room, studying her with an intensity that made her skin tingle. "Elena Whitmore. I can't believe it's you." She turned to find David Chen, their old class president, approaching with a champagne flute in each hand. He offered her one, his smile warm and genuine. "David, it's wonderful to see you." She accepted the champagne gratefully, needing something to do with her hands. "I heard you were back in town. Sorry about the business troubles." His expression was sympathetic without being pitying. "But hey, sometimes life forces us to come home for a reason, right?" Before she could respond, a new voice joined the conversation. "I couldn't agree more." Alex had appeared beside them, his presence immediately shifting the dynamic. David's demeanor became more formal, more deferential. Elena had forgotten how money changed the way people interacted, how wealth created invisible barriers and hierarchies. "Alexander, thank you for the invitation," David said, extending his hand. "The whole town is talking about your success. MIT to Billionaire. It's like a fairy tale." "Fairy tales are for children," Alex replied, shaking David's hand briefly. "Success comes from hard work and determination. And from knowing who you can trust." Elena felt the barb in his words, the subtle accusation. She met his gaze steadily, refusing to look away despite the pain she saw there. "If you'll excuse us," Alex continued, I'd like to speak with Ms. Whitmore privately. David, please enjoy the party. The catering is excellent. It was a dismissal, polite but firm. David took the hint and melted back into the crowd, leaving Elena alone with the man she'd once loved and lost. Shall we? Alex gestured toward a pair of French doors that led to a terrace overlooking the gardens. The evening air was cool against her skin as they stepped outside. The terrace was empty except for them, the party noise fading to a distant hum. Alex moved to the stone railing, his hands clasped behind his back as he looked out over the grounds. You look well, he said finally. Success must agree with you. Elena almost laughed at the irony. Actually, I've had better years. My firm collapsed 6 months ago. I lost everything. He turned to face her, and for a moment, she saw a flicker of the boy she'd known, concerned, caring. But it was gone so quickly she might have imagined it. I'm sorry to hear that, he said. Business can be unpredictable. Is that why you bought this place? The question came out before she could stop it. To show everyone how unpredictable business can be. Alex's smile was cold. I bought this place because I liked it. The fact that it's next door to your family's estate is purely coincidental. Is it? They stared at each other across the space between them, 11 years of hurt and regret and unspoken words hanging in the air. Elena could feel the pull of old attraction, the magnetic force that had once drawn them together despite every obstacle. You rejected me, Alex said quietly. You chose your family's approval over what we had. Over what we could have been. I was 17, Elena replied, her voice breaking slightly. I was scared, and I made a mistake. But you left without looking back. What was I supposed to do? Wait around hoping you'd change your mind? Spend my life trying to prove I was worthy of someone who'd already decided I wasn't. That's not fair, and you know it. Fair. Alex's laugh was bitter. Was it fair when your father told me I'd never be good enough for you? When your mother crossed the street to avoid talking to me? When you stood there and let them do it? Elena felt tears prick her eyes. I didn't know about my father. You never asked. You never fought for us. You just let us die. The words hung between them like a blade. Elena wanted to defend herself, to explain the pressure she'd been under, the expectations that had weighed her down. But looking at Alex now, successful, powerful, but somehow harder than he'd ever been, she realized that her explanations were 11 years too late. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry, Alex. Alexander, he corrected again. And apologies don't change the past, Elena. They don't give us back what we lost. He moved toward the French doors, then paused. Enjoy the party. I believe your parents would approve of the guest list. And with that, he was gone, leaving Elena alone on the terrace with the weight of her regrets and the terrible understanding that some wounds never truly heal. The next morning brought an unexpected visitor to the Whitmore estate. Elena was in the garden, trying to clear her head after a sleepless night, when she heard the crunch of gravel in the driveway. She looked up to see a sleek black Tesla pulling through the gates, Alex's car. But it wasn't Alex who emerged from the driver's seat. It was a woman in her 50s with graying hair and laugh lines around her eyes. Elena recognized her immediately, though she looked older and more tired than she remembered. Mrs. Kane. Elena called out, rising from where she'd been kneeling among the rose bushes. Maria Kane turned, and her face broke into a warm smile. Elena! My goodness, look at you. All grown up and more beautiful than ever. Elena felt a rush of emotion as Alex's mother approached. Maria Kane had always been kind to her, even when Elena's own parents had made their disapproval of Alex clear. She'd been the one person who'd seemed to understand their young love. I heard you were back in town, Maria said, pulling Elena into a gentle hug. I'm so sorry about your business troubles, dear. But sometimes life has a way of bringing us back to where we need to be. I'm not sure I'm where I need to be, Elena admitted. Last night was difficult? Maria's expression grew serious. I imagine it was. Alex told me about the party, about seeing you again. He's been carrying a lot of pain for a long time, Elena. You both have. They sat on the garden bench, and Maria took Elena's hands in hers. I want to tell you something that I think you need to know. About what happened after you broke up. Elena's heart raced. Mrs. Kane, I don't know if. Please, let me finish. Maria's voice was gentle but firm. The night you rejected him, Alex came home broken. I'd never seen him so devastated. He locked himself in his room for 3 days, wouldn't eat, wouldn't talk to anyone. Elena felt tears spring to her eyes. She'd been so focused on her own pain that she'd never fully considered how much she'd hurt him. But that's not the worst part, Maria continued. A week later, your father came to see him. What? Elena's blood turned to ice. Richard Whitmore showed up at our apartment. He told Alex to stay away from you, that you'd chosen your family and your future over him. But then he offered him money, a lot of money, to leave town and never contact you again. Elena felt the world tilt on its axis. No, my father wouldn't. Alex refused, of course. He was furious. He told your father that he'd never take money to abandon someone he loved. That's when your father told him the truth about your college plans. What truth? Maria's eyes were sad. That you'd already accepted the full scholarship to Duke. That you'd been planning to go there all along, even before you started dating Alex. Your father said you'd been using my son as a rebellion against your family, but that you'd never actually intended to leave with him. Elena felt sick. That's not true. I did get into Duke, but I was going to turn it down. I was going to follow Alex to Boston, or wherever he wanted to go. I got scared. I believe you, dear. But Alex didn't know that. Your father was very convincing. He made it sound like you'd been playing with my son's heart all along. Oh God. Elena buried her face in her hands. No wonder he hates me. He doesn't hate you, Maria said softly. If he hated you, he wouldn't have bought the house next door. He wouldn't have spent the last 10 years building an empire to prove he was worthy of you. Elena looked up sharply. What do you mean? Elena, my son is worth over $3 billion. He could live anywhere in the world. He could have bought a mansion in the Hamptons, or a penthouse in Manhattan, or a villa in Italy. Why do you think he chose to come back to the one place that holds the most painful memories of his life? Elena's mind raced. The Scholarship Foundation. All those disadvantaged students he helps. Is that because of what your father said about him not being good enough? Yes. Every scholarship he funds, every kid he helps escape poverty, it's all connected to that night when he was told he wasn't worthy of love. Elena felt a tear roll down her cheek. I never knew what my father did. Alex has never told anyone about that conversation. I only know because I overheard part of it. Your father was very clear that if Alex ever told you about their meeting, he'd make sure Alex never got into any decent college anywhere. And Alex believed him? Your father is a powerful man in this town, Elena. He had connections, influence. Alex couldn't risk his future, or his mother's welfare, on the chance that your father was bluffing. Elena stood and began pacing, her mind reeling. So he left. He went to MIT and built his company and became everything my father said he couldn't be. He became successful, yes. But he also became hard, closed off. He's never let anyone get close to him since. He dates, but he never commits. He's polite, charming, but there's a wall around his heart that no one has been able to break through. Because of me, Elena whispered. Because of the choice you made, and the lies that were told afterward. But mostly because of the love he lost and never got over. Elena turned to face Maria. What am I supposed to do with this information? I don't know, dear. But I know that you're both miserable, and you're both here, and maybe that means something. Maybe it's time to tell the truth about what really happened. After Maria left, Elena sat in the garden for hours, processing everything she'd learned. Her father had manipulated them both, using their love against them. He'd convinced Alex that Elena's feelings weren't real, while pressuring Elena to choose family duty over her heart. As the sun began to set, Elena made a decision. She couldn't change the past, but she could tell Alex the truth. She could explain what had really happened that night, and why she'd made the choice she did. She only hoped it wasn't too late for both of them to find a way to heal. Elena's hands shook as she walked up the stone pathway to the Hartwell mansion. The evening air was crisp, carrying the scent of autumn leaves and the distant sound of classical music from Alex's study. She'd spent hours crafting what she would say, but now, standing at his door, the words seemed inadequate. She rang the bell, and moments later, the same housekeeper from the night before answered. "Ms. Whitmore? Mr. Kane isn't expecting you." "I know. But I need to speak with him. Please, it's important." The woman studied her for a moment, then nodded. "Wait here." Elena stood in the foyer, her heart hammering as she listened to muffled voices from deeper in the house. The housekeeper returned with a neutral expression. "Mr. Kane will see you in his study. Follow me." The study was a perfect blend of old and new, original mahogany shelves filled with both classic literature and modern business texts, a stone fireplace with a contemporary seating area, and a massive desk where Alex sat working on a laptop. He looked up as she entered, his expression unreadable. "Elena, this is unexpected. I spoke with your mother today. She didn't bother with pleasantries. She told me about my father's visit." Alex's fingers stilled on the keyboard. Slowly, he closed the laptop and leaned back in his chair. "Did she now? Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you tell me what he said to you? What would have been the point?" Alex's voice was carefully controlled. "You'd already made your choice. Your father just confirmed what I already knew. You knew nothing." Elena's voice cracked with emotion. "You believed his lies instead of trusting me. His lies." Alex stood and moved around the desk. "Which part was a lie, Elena? The part where you'd already accepted the scholarship to Duke? Or the part where you'd been planning to go there all along?" "I did accept the scholarship, but I was going to turn it down. I was going to follow you to Boston, or wherever you wanted to go. I just needed time to figure out how to tell my parents." "Time." Alex's laugh was bitter. "You had time. We'd been together for 8 months. How much time did you need?" "I was 17. Elena's voice rose. "I was scared of disappointing everyone, of making the wrong choice. But I was going to choose you, Alex. I was going to choose us." "Were you? Or were you just scared of what people would think if you broke up with the poor kid too suddenly?" Elena felt as if he'd slapped her. "How can you say that? You know how I felt about you." "Do I?" "Because when your father told me you'd been using me as a rebellion against your family, it made perfect sense. The princess slumming it with the commoner, knowing all along that it was temporary. That's not true, and you know it." Elena moved closer, her eyes blazing. "What we had was real. What I felt for you was real. The only reason I hesitated was because I was young and scared and didn't know how to disappoint the people I loved. But you had no problem disappointing me." The words hung in the air between them, heavy with 11 years of hurt and misunderstanding. Elena felt tears streaming down her face, but she didn't wipe them away. "I know," she whispered. "I know I hurt you. I know I broke your heart and my own in the process. But I was going to choose you, Alex. The night you asked me to leave with you, I went home and wrote a letter to Duke declining their offer. I never sent it because we fought, but I wrote it." Alex's expression flickered, a crack in his carefully controlled facade. "You wrote a letter? I still have it. It's in my diary from senior year. I kept it all these years because it reminded me of the choice I should have made." "Elena, you want to know the truth?" The real truth. Elena was crying openly now, but her voice was strong. I loved you more than I'd ever loved anyone. You were my first love, my best friend, my whole world. When you asked me to leave with you, every part of me wanted to say yes. But I was terrified of letting everyone down, of proving my parents right about me being irresponsible. So you chose them. I chose fear, Elena corrected. I chose the safe path, the expected path. And I've regretted it every day since. Alex stared at her for a long moment, and she could see the war playing out in his eyes, the desire to believe her fighting against years of hurt and cynicism. Even if that's true, he said finally, it doesn't change what happened. You still chose your family over me. You still let me leave believing that what we had meant nothing to you. I know. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Elena wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. But I need you to know that my father lied to you. I never used you as a rebellion. I never planned to leave you. I loved you with everything I had, and losing you broke me in ways I'm still trying to fix. Alex turned away from her, staring out the window at the gardens. Do you know what the worst part was? It wasn't the poverty, or the way your parents looked at me, or even the way the other kids at school treated me. It was knowing that I'd given you everything I had, and it still wasn't enough. It was enough, Elena said fiercely. You were always enough. More than enough. I was just too young and too scared to see it. I built this empire thinking that if I could just become successful enough, wealthy enough, powerful enough, maybe I could prove your father wrong. Maybe I could prove that I was worthy of you. You were always worthy of me. You didn't need to prove anything. Alex turned back to her, and she saw tears in his eyes for the first time. Then why does it still hurt so much? Elena's heart broke at the pain in his voice. Because some wounds cut too deep to heal easily. Because we were both just kids who didn't know how to fight for what we wanted. I did fight for it. I fought for you. I know. And I should have fought harder. I should have been braver. They stood in silence for a moment, the weight of their shared history settling between them. Finally, Alex spoke. I don't know how to forgive you, Elena. I don't know how to forgive myself for believing the worst about you. You don't have to forgive me, Elena said softly. But I need you to know the truth. I need you to know that what we had was real, and that losing you was the biggest mistake of my life. Alex moved to his desk and pulled out a small, leather journal. He opened it to a page marked with a ribbon and held it out to her. Read this. Elena took the journal with trembling hands. It was a letter, written in Alex's careful handwriting and dated 3 weeks after graduation. Elena, I know I said I wouldn't wait for you, but I lied. I'll wait as long as it takes. I'll prove to your family that I'm worthy of you, that I can give you everything you deserve. I'll build something so big, so successful, that even your father will have to admit he was wrong about me. I love you more than my own life, and I'll never stop fighting for us. Please don't give up on me. Please don't give up on us. Alex. Elena's hands shook as she read the letter. You never sent this. I wrote it the night before I left for MIT. I was going to send it after I'd proven myself, after I'd become someone your family could respect. But then I got your letter. My letter. Alex walked to a safe in the corner of the room and withdrew a cream-colored envelope. Elena recognized her own handwriting immediately. You wrote to me 3 months after I left. You said you were happy at Duke, that you'd met someone new, that you hoped we could be friends but that you'd moved on. Elena stared at the letter in horror. I never wrote this. It's your handwriting, Elena. You're stationary. Elena examined the letter more closely, her mind racing. The handwriting was hers, but something was off. The phrasing, the tone, it wasn't how she spoke or wrote. Alex, I swear to you, I never wrote this letter. I never had a boyfriend at Duke. I was miserable the entire time, thinking about you every day. Then how? Elena's eyes widened as understanding dawned. My father. He had samples of my handwriting from school forms, letters I'd written to relatives. He could have had someone forge this, or he could have dictated it to someone who could copy my writing. Alex's face went pale. You think your father wrote this? I know he did. Look at the phrasing. I hope we can remain friends. That's how my father talks, not me. And the paper, this is from his office stationery set, not mine. They stared at each other as the full scope of Richard Whitmore's manipulation became clear. He hadn't just driven them apart with lies and threats. He'd actively worked to ensure they could never find their way back to each other. He destroyed us, Alex whispered. He tried to, Elena corrected. But we're both here now. And now we know the truth. Alex looked at her with an expression she'd never seen before. Hope mixed with fear, love mixed with pain. Elena, I don't know what to do with this. Neither do I, she admitted. But I know I'm tired of letting my father's lies define our story. I'm tired of living with regret. So what do you want to do about it? Elena took a deep breath, knowing that her next words would change everything. I want to tell the truth. I want to face my father together. And then I want to see if we can find our way back to each other. Alex stared at her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Okay. Let's tell the truth. The next morning, Elena stood outside her father's study, her heart pounding with a mixture of rage and determination. Alex stood beside her, his presence both comforting and terrifying. They'd spent the night talking, piecing together the full scope of Richard Whitmore's manipulation, and now it was time for the confrontation that was 11 years overdue. Are you ready for this? Alex asked quietly, his hand brushing against hers. Elena nodded, though she wasn't sure she'd ever be ready to face the man who'd destroyed the most important relationship of her life. He's going to deny everything. Let him try. Alex's voice was steel. I brought copies of the forged letter. I also had my lawyers do some digging overnight. Your father's law firm handled the logistics of having that letter written and sent. We have documentation. Elena's stomach churned. The betrayal was even deeper than she'd imagined. Her father hadn't just lied to them. He'd orchestrated an elaborate deception, using his professional resources to ensure their separation was permanent. She knocked on the study door, and her father's familiar voice called out, "Come in." Richard Whitmore looked up from his mahogany desk, his silver hair perfectly styled, his expensive suit immaculate. At 65, he was still an imposing figure, the kind of man who commanded respect through presence alone. His smile faltered when he saw Alex beside his daughter. Elena, darling, I didn't realize you were bringing a guest. Hello, Mr. Whitmore. Alex's voice was carefully polite, but Elena could hear the underlying tension. I believe we have some unfinished business to discuss. Richard's eyes narrowed. I'm not sure what you mean, Mr. Kane. Perhaps you'd like to schedule an appointment. Sit down, Dad. Elena's voice cut through his deflection. We need to talk about what happened 11 years ago. Elena, I don't think. Sit down. This time it was Alex who spoke, and there was something in his tone that made Richard Whitmore sink into his chair. Success had given Alex a different kind of power, the kind that even old money respected. Elena pulled out the forged letter and placed it on her father's desk. I never wrote this. Richard barely glanced at it. I don't know what you're talking about. You had it forged, Elena continued. You used samples of my handwriting to create a letter that would convince Alex I'd moved on, that I was happy without him. That's a serious accusation, Elena. I hope you have proof. Alex stepped forward and placed a file folder on the desk. Digital records from your law firm's billing department. 3 charges to document preparation services in the month after Elena started college. The vendor specializes in handwriting replication for legal documents. Richard's face went pale, but he maintained his composure. That proves nothing. Those could have been for any number of legitimate purposes. Could they? Elena's voice was shaking with fury. Just like your visit to Alex's apartment was for a legitimate purpose? When you offered him money to leave town and told him I'd been using him as a rebellion. I was protecting you. Richard's mask finally slipped, revealing the desperation beneath. You were 17 years old, Elena. You had no idea what you were throwing away for some boy who would never be able to provide for you. Some boy. Alex's voice was dangerously quiet. Is that what you thought of me? I thought you were a distraction, Richard shot back. A poor kid with big dreams and no realistic way to achieve them. I thought Elena would come to her senses once she was away from your influence. So you decided to influence her yourself, Elena said. By lying to both of us. I did what any father would do. I protected my daughter from making a mistake that would have ruined her life. Ruined her life? Alex laughed bitterly. I'm worth $3 billion, Mr. Whitmore. I employ over 10,000 people. I've revolutionized 3 industries and funded scholarships for thousands of students. Exactly how would being with me have ruined Elena's life? Richard's jaw tightened. Money isn't everything, Mr. Kane. Elena needed stability, security, a man from her own world who understood her background and expectations. You mean a man you approved of, Elena said. A man who would fit into your social circle and enhance your reputation. I meant a man who could give you the life you deserved. The life I deserved? Elena's voice rose. Dad, I've been miserable for 11 years. I've dated dozens of men who were exactly what you wanted. Wealthy, well-connected, socially appropriate. And none of them made me feel even a fraction of what Alex made me feel. Teenage infatuation. Love. Elena corrected fiercely. It was love, Dad. Real, deep, life-changing love. And you destroyed it with your lies and manipulation. Richard stood up, his face flushed with anger. I did what I thought was best for you. I won't apologize for that. You should apologize, Alex said quietly. Because your actions didn't just hurt Elena and me. They changed who we both became. Elena spent 11 years trying to please you, and I spent 11 years trying to prove I was worthy of something I'd already lost. You think I should have just let my 17-year-old daughter throw away her future for you? I think you should have trusted her to make her own choices, Alex replied. I think you should have given her the respect of believing she knew her own heart. And I think you should have fought harder for her instead of taking money and running. The words hung in the air like a slap. Alex's face went white, and Elena saw 11 years of pain and anger flash in his eyes. I never took your money, Alex said, his voice deadly calm. I told you then, and I'm telling you now, I would never take money to abandon someone I loved. But you left anyway. I left because you convinced me that Elena had never loved me in the first place. You made me believe that I was deluding myself, that she was just using me for excitement before settling down with someone appropriate. Richard's expression flickered with something that might have been guilt. I may have overstated. You lied. Elena's voice was ice. You looked at a boy who loved your daughter and convinced him he wasn't worthy of that love. You looked at your daughter and convinced her she had to choose between love and family. You manipulated both of us into believing that what we had wasn't real. I was trying to protect you. From what? From happiness. From love. From the chance to build something real with someone who saw me for who I really was. Richard slumped back in his chair, suddenly looking every one of his 65 years. I thought he would hurt you eventually. I thought he would leave you once he realized what he was missing. So you made sure he would leave, Alex said. You created a self-fulfilling prophecy. I wanted you to have security, Elena. I wanted you to have a life where you never had to worry about money or status or... I wanted to have love, Elena interrupted. I wanted to have a partner who saw me as more than just a trophy or a social connection. I wanted to have what Mom and you had before you became so obsessed with appearances. The mention of her mother seemed to hit Richard like a physical blow. He looked at his daughter with something approaching desperation. Elena, please. I know I made mistakes, but I did it because I love you. Because I wanted to protect you from the pain I saw in so many marriages where money became an issue. The only pain in my life has been from losing Alex, Elena said quietly. Every relationship I've had since has been a shadow of what we had. Every man I've dated has been measured against a memory of someone who loved me completely, just as I was. Richard looked between them, seeing perhaps for the first time the depth of what he'd destroyed. I never realized. I thought you'd moved on. I thought you were happy. I was never happy, Elena said. I was compliant. I was obedient. I was everything you wanted me to be. But I was never happy. The silence stretched between them, heavy with years of pain and misunderstanding. Finally, Richard spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I thought I was doing the right thing. The right thing would have been to trust me, Elena said. To let me make my own choices and support me in them. And to treat me like a human being instead of a threat, Alex added. To judge me on my character instead of my bank account. Richard nodded slowly, tears in his eyes. I don't know how to fix this. I don't know how to undo what I've done. Elena looked at Alex, seeing her own pain reflected in his eyes. They'd spent 11 years apart because of her father's fears and prejudices. 11 years of missed opportunities, of loneliness, of wondering what might have been. You can't undo it, she said finally. But you can acknowledge it. You can admit that you were wrong, and you can promise never to interfere in my life again. I promise, Richard said quickly. I swear to you, Elena, I will never. And you can apologize to Alex, Elena continued. Really apologize. For what you said to him, for what you did to him, for the way you treated him. Richard looked at Alex, his proud shoulders sagging with the weight of his guilt. Alexander. Alex. I owe you an apology that's 11 years overdue. I was wrong about you. I was wrong about what you meant to Elena, and I was wrong about what kind of man you were. I let my own fears and prejudices blind me to the fact that you made my daughter happier than I'd ever seen her. Alex nodded slowly. I appreciate that, Mr. Whitmore. But the person you really need to apologize to is Elena. She's the one who suffered the most from your actions. I know, Richard said, turning to his daughter. Elena, I'm sorry. I'm so deeply sorry for what I did to you, for what I took from you. I thought I was protecting you, but I was really just protecting myself from the fear of losing you. Elena felt tears streaming down her face. You didn't lose me, Dad. But you almost made me lose myself. Can you forgive me? Elena looked at her father, really looked at him, and saw not the powerful, controlling man she'd feared for so long, but a scared old man who'd made terrible choices out of love and fear. I can forgive you, she said quietly. But I can't trust you. Not yet. Trust has to be earned back. I'll do whatever it takes, Richard promised. Whatever it takes to earn your trust again. Elena nodded, then turned to Alex. What about you? Can you forgive him? Alex studied Richard for a long moment. I can forgive him for what he did to me. The harder thing is forgiving him for what he did to you. That's my choice to make, Elena said softly. Just like loving you was my choice to make 11 years ago. And now? Alex asked. What choice are you making now? Elena took his hand, feeling the rightness of it, the completeness that had been missing from her life for so long. Now I'm choosing love. I'm choosing you. I'm choosing us. Alex's eyes filled with tears as he pulled her into his arms. I've been waiting 11 years to hear you say that. I know, Elena whispered against his chest. I'm sorry it took me so long to find the courage. As they held each other, Elena felt something shift inside her. The scared 17-year-old girl who'd been afraid to disappoint her family was gone. In her place was a woman who knew her own heart and was finally brave enough to follow it. 3 weeks after the confrontation with her father, Elena found herself in a place she'd never expected to be. Sitting across from Alex in his study, planning a future together. The road to rebuilding their relationship hadn't been easy, but every difficult conversation, every moment of vulnerability, had brought them closer to the people they'd been before the world had torn them apart. "I have something for you," Alex said, reaching into his desk drawer. He pulled out a small, worn envelope with Elena's name written in his careful handwriting. Elena's heart skipped. "What is it?" "The letter I wrote to you when I graduated from MIT," Alex said quietly. "I wrote it the night I got my first job offer. I was going to send it to you, to tell you that I'd made it, that I'd become someone your family could respect." Elena's hands trembled as she opened the envelope. The letter was dated 4 years after their breakup, and as she read it, tears began to fall. "Ellie," it began, using the nickname only he had ever called her. "I graduated today with highest honors, and the only person I wanted to share it with was you. I know you've moved on, I know you have someone new, but I need you to know that everything I've accomplished has been because of you. You made me want to be better, to reach higher, to prove that love could conquer anything, even the barriers between our worlds. I've been offered a position at a tech startup in Silicon Valley. The salary is more than my mother made in 5 years at the diner. I'm going to take it, and I'm going to build something amazing. Not to win you back. I know that ship has sailed, but to honor what we had. To prove that the boy you loved, even briefly, was worth loving. I hope you're happy, Ellie. I hope whoever you chose gives you everything you deserve. I hope you remember me sometimes, and when you do, I hope you smile. I will always love you. Even when it hurts. Even when it's hopeless. Even when I'm supposed to let go. Forever yours, Alex." Elena was crying openly now, her heart breaking for the pain he'd carried, for the years they'd lost. "Alex, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry you thought I'd moved on. I did what I had to do to survive," Alex said, his voice thick with emotion. "I channeled all my pain into ambition, all my love into success. But it was never enough. Nothing was ever enough without you. I never moved on," Elena whispered. "I tried so hard to forget you, to convince myself that what we had was just teenage infatuation. But every man I dated, every relationship I tried to build, it all felt like a pale imitation of what we had." Alex moved around the desk and pulled her into his arms. "We can't get back those 11 years, Elena. But we can make sure we don't waste any more time." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I want to try again. Really try. Not as the scared kids we were, but as the adults we've become. I want to court you properly this time, take you on real dates, meet your friends, integrate our lives slowly and carefully." Elena looked up at him, seeing the vulnerability in his eyes. "Are you sure? After everything we've been through, after all the pain?" "I'm sure," Alex said firmly. "But I need to know that you're sure too. I need to know that you're choosing me because you love me, not because you feel guilty about the past." Elena cupped his face in her hands. "I'm choosing you because I never stopped loving you. Because you're the only man who's ever seen me, really seen me, and loved me for who I am, not who I'm supposed to be. And I'm choosing you because you're the only woman who's ever made me feel like I was enough just as I was," Alex replied. "Before I had money or success or any of the things the world values. You loved me when I was nobody." "You were never nobody," Elena said fiercely. "You were everything." They kissed then, soft and gentle and full of promise. It was different from their teenage kisses. Deeper, more mature, weighted with the knowledge of what they'd lost and what they were fighting to regain. When they broke apart, Alex rested his forehead against hers. "I want to do this right this time. I want to take you on proper dates, bring you flowers, meet your friends. I want to show you that I can be the man you deserve." "You already are," Elena said. "But I'd like that. I'd like to rediscover each other, to build something new on the foundation of what we had." There's something else, Alex said, pulling back slightly. I want to make peace with your mother. I know she wasn't part of what your father did, but I need to know she approves of us being together. Elena's heart swelled. She'll love you, Alex. She always did. She just didn't know how to stand up to my father. And I want to help your father understand that I'm not a threat to your family. I want to be part of your family, not a replacement for it. Elena thought about her father, who'd been walking on eggshells around her since their confrontation. He'd sent flowers, written letters, made awkward attempts at conversation. The proud man who'd never admitted fault to anyone had been humbled by the consequences of his actions. It might take time, Elena said. But I think he wants to make amends. He's been asking about you, about how you're doing, about whether you'll ever forgive him. I'm working on it, Alex said. The anger was easier than the forgiveness. But I'm trying to understand that he thought he was protecting you. He was wrong. He was terrified, Alex corrected. Terrified of losing his daughter to someone he didn't understand. I can't say I wouldn't have done the same thing if I'd been in his position. Elena looked at him with new appreciation. When did you become so wise? When I realized that carrying anger was harder than carrying love, Alex said. I spent 11 years angry, Elena. I don't want to spend another day that way. Over the following weeks, Alex kept his promise. He courted Elena like a man who'd been given a second chance at the most important thing in his life. He sent flowers to her office, took her to dinner at restaurants where they could talk for hours, walked with her through the gardens where they'd first fallen in love. He met her college friends, who were shocked to learn about the great love of Elena's life. He attended charity events with her, standing proudly by her side as she introduced him to the social world that had once seemed so important. And slowly, carefully, he began to rebuild his relationship with her family. He had dinner with Elena's mother Victoria, who cried when she saw how happy her daughter was. He played golf with her father, both men carefully polite as they navigated the complex emotions between them. I want you to know, Richard said one afternoon as they walked off the 18th green, that I see how she lights up when she's with you. I haven't seen her smile like that since she was 17, Alex finished. Yes. And I realize now that I spent so many years trying to protect her from disappointment that I prevented her from experiencing real joy. She's joyful now, Alex said. We both are. I'm glad, Richard said simply. And I'm sorry it took me so long to see what she saw in you. I'm sorry it took me so long to forgive you for not seeing it. They shook hands then, not as enemies or even as reluctant allies, but as two men who loved the same woman and wanted her to be happy. Meanwhile, Elena was rediscovering parts of herself she'd lost years ago. With Alex, she laughed more freely, dreamed more boldly, loved more openly. She remembered what it felt like to be seen and appreciated for her mind, her humor, her passion, not just her social connections or her family's wealth. I forgot how funny you are, she told him one evening as they walked through the moonlit gardens of his estate. I forgot how beautiful you are when you laugh, he replied. Really laugh, not that polite laugh you do at parties. I forgot how safe I feel with you, Elena said. Like I can be completely myself without worrying about whether I'm being appropriate or proper or suitable. You are completely yourself, Alex said, stopping to pull her into his arms. You're brilliant and kind and passionate and strong. You're everything I remembered and more. I love you, Elena said, the words coming easily now. I love you so much it scares me sometimes. Why does it scare you? Because I lost you once. Because I know how much it hurts to live without you. Alex cupped her face in his hands. You're not going to lose me again, Elena. I promise you that. We're not scared kids anymore. We're adults who know what we want and what we're worth. No one is going to separate us again. Promise me, Elena whispered. I promise, Alex said, sealing the vow with a kiss that tasted of forever. As autumn turned to winter, Elena and Alex settled into a rhythm that felt both familiar and new. They were building something solid, something real, something that could withstand the storms that had once torn them apart. But even as they grew closer, both of them knew that there was still one more step to take, one more conversation to have, one more choice to make. The question that had been hanging between them since the night of the party, unspoken but always present. What happened next? Christmas Eve arrived with a blanket of snow that transformed the Connecticut countryside into a winter wonderland. Elena stood at her bedroom window, watching the snowflakes dance in the light from the Hartwell mansion. Alex had been mysterious all week, planning something special for the holiday, but refusing to give her any hints. "Elena, darling, are you ready?" her mother called from downstairs. "Alexander will be here any moment." Elena took one last look in the mirror. She'd chosen a deep red dress that brought out the color in her cheeks and made her feel beautiful. Alex had requested that she dress up for their Christmas Eve dinner, but had been maddeningly vague about their plans. The doorbell rang, and Elena's heart skipped the way it always did when she knew Alex was near. 6 months of dating, really dating, not just falling back into old patterns, had only deepened her love for him. If anything, the man he'd become was even more attractive to her than the boy she'd fallen in love with. She found him in the living room, looking devastatingly handsome in a black tuxedo, talking quietly with her parents. The sight of him chatting easily with her father, who'd become one of his most ardent supporters, still amazed her. "You look stunning," Alex said, his eyes lighting up when he saw her. "You clean up pretty well yourself," Elena replied, accepting the single red rose he offered her. "If you'll excuse us," Alex said to her parents, "we have reservations to keep." But instead of leading her to his car, Alex guided her toward the back gardens. Elena's confusion grew as they walked along the familiar paths, now lined with thousands of twinkling lights. "Alex, where are we going? I thought we had dinner reservations." "We do," Alex said mysteriously. "Just not where you think." They rounded the corner of the garden maze, and Elena gasped. The old gazebo where they'd shared their first kiss had been transformed into a winter fairy tale. It was draped in white lights and evergreen garland, with a small table set for two in the center. Candles flickered in glass hurricanes, casting dancing shadows on the snow. "Alex, this is beautiful," Elena breathed. "I wanted to bring you back to where it all started," Alex said, leading her up the steps of the gazebo. "This is where I first told you I loved you." "I remember," Elena said softly. "It was snowing then too. I had the caterers from the Four Seasons come out," Alex said as he helped her into her chair. "I wanted everything to be perfect." As they ate, they talked about everything and nothing. Their favorite Christmas memories, their plans for the new year, their dreams for the future. The conversation flowed as easily as it always had, punctuated by comfortable silences and shared smiles. "I have something for you," Alex said when they'd finished their meal. He pulled out a small, wrapped box from his jacket pocket. Elena's heart raced. The box was clearly from a jewelry store, but she didn't want to assume. "Alex, you didn't have to. Just open it," he said, his voice slightly nervous. Elena unwrapped the box with trembling fingers. Inside was a pair of diamond earrings, beautiful but not what she'd been half expecting, half hoping for. "They're beautiful," she said, meaning it but unable to hide her slight disappointment. "They were my grandmother's," Alex said. "She died when I was 15, but she always said I should give them to the woman I was going to marry." Elena's eyes flew to his face. "Alex, I know it's not a ring," Alex said quickly. "But I wanted to give you something that connected you to my family, to my history. I wanted you to know that you're not just getting me, Elena. You're getting all of me, my past, my present, my future." "I love them," Elena said, tears in her eyes. "I love you." "There's more," Alex said, standing up. "Elena, I've been thinking about what you said that night in my study. About telling the truth, about not letting fear control our choices anymore." "Alex, what are you?" "I'm telling you the truth," Alex said, dropping to one knee. Elena's hands flew to her mouth as Alex pulled out a second box, this one containing a ring that took her breath away. It was a perfect solitaire diamond, classic and elegant, set in a band of white gold. "Elena Whitmore," Alex said, his voice strong and sure. I have loved you since I was 17 years old. I loved you when I was nobody. I loved you when I thought I'd lost you forever, and I love you now that I've found you again. You are the only woman who has ever made me feel complete, the only person who has ever seen me for who I really am and loved me anyway. Elena was crying now, her heart so full she could barely breathe. I know we've wasted 11 years, Alex continued. I know we've both been hurt, both made mistakes. But I also know that what we have is worth fighting for. It's worth building on. It's worth spending the rest of our lives protecting and nurturing. Alex. I'm not the same scared boy who asked you to run away with me, Alex said. And you're not the same scared girl who was afraid to disappoint her family. We're adults now, Elena. We know what we want, and we know what we're worth. And I know, with absolute certainty, that I want to spend the rest of my life loving you. Elena was sobbing now, overwhelmed by the perfection of the moment, by the rightness of it all. Will you marry me, Elena? Will you be my wife, my partner, my best friend for the rest of our lives? Yes, Elena whispered. Yes, yes, yes. Alex slipped the ring onto her finger with shaking hands, then stood and pulled her into his arms. They kissed with the passion of lovers who'd found each other again, who'd overcome every obstacle that had tried to keep them apart. I can't believe this is real, Elena said against his lips. It's real, Alex said. We're real. This is really happening. I love you so much, Elena said. I love you so much it hurts. Good hurt or bad hurt? The best hurt, Elena said, laughing through her tears. The kind of hurt that means you're alive, that you're feeling everything. They held each other in the gazebo, surrounded by lights and snow and the promise of forever. Elena looked down at the ring on her finger, then up at the man who'd put it there. The man who'd loved her enough to wait 11 years for this moment. When did you know? She asked. When did you know you wanted to propose? I knew the night you came to my study to tell me the truth, Alex said. I knew the moment I saw you standing there, fighting for us, that I wanted to spend the rest of my life with you. And you've been planning this for months? I've been planning this for 11 years, Alex corrected. I just didn't know it yet. Elena laughed, the sound bright and joyful in the winter air. My parents are going to be thrilled. My mother's been dropping hints about grandchildren for months. And your father? My father loves you, Elena said simply. He sees how happy you make me, and that's all he wants now. I want to do this right, Alex said. I want to ask him for your hand officially, have a proper engagement party, plan the wedding you've always dreamed of. I just want to marry you, Elena said. Everything else is just details. Important details, Alex said. I want to give you the fairy tale wedding, Elena. I want to give you everything you've ever wanted. You already have, Elena said, holding up her hand to admire the ring. You've given me yourself. You've given me forever. As they walked back to the house, Elena's mind was already racing with possibilities. She thought about the wedding they'd plan, the home they'd build together, the children they might have someday. She thought about growing old with Alex, about facing whatever challenges life threw at them side by side. I have one condition, she said as they reached the garden gate. Name it. I want to hyphenate my name. Elena Whitmore Kane. I want to honor both families, both histories. Alex smiled. I think that's perfect. Elena Whitmore Kane has a nice ring to it. And I want to be involved in your foundation, Elena said. I want to help you give other kids the opportunities you had to fight for. I was hoping you'd say that, Alex said. I've been wanting to expand the scholarship program, maybe start a mentorship component. I could use a partner who understands both sides of the equation. Elena stopped walking and turned to face him. A partnership in every sense of the word? In every sense, Alex confirmed. Partners in business, partners in life, partners in everything. I like the sound of that, Elena said. As they approached the house, Elena could see her parents waiting in the living room, their faces anxious but hopeful. She held up her left hand, letting the diamond catch the light, and watched as her mother's face broke into a radiant smile. "I think they approve," Alex said, watching Richard Whitmore stand up and straighten his tie, clearly preparing to welcome his future son-in-law. "They'd better," Elena said, pulling Alex closer. "Because I'm not letting you go again. Ever. Promise." "I promise," Elena said, sealing her vow with a kiss that tasted of snow and champagne and the sweetest kind of forever. 6 months later, Elena stood in the bridal suite of the Hartwell mansion, surrounded by her bridesmaids and the controlled chaos of wedding day preparation. The June sun streamed through the windows, casting golden light across the ivory silk of her wedding dress. "You look absolutely radiant," her mother said, adjusting the pearl necklace that had been worn by 3 generations of Whitmore brides. "Are you nervous?" "Not even a little bit," Elena said, and she meant it. After 11 years of wondering, what if? She'd never been more certain of anything in her life. Her phone buzzed with a text from Alex. "Can't wait to see you at the altar. I love you, soon-to-be Mrs. Whitmore Kane." Elena smiled, typing back, "I love you too, soon-to-be husband." The wedding had been planned with the kind of attention to detail that only unlimited resources and months of preparation could provide. The ceremony would take place in the garden where they'd fallen in love, with the reception following in a pavilion that had been constructed specifically for the occasion. But despite the grandeur of the event, Elena had insisted on personal touches that honored their story. The aisle would be lined with white roses, the same flowers Alex had brought her on their first official date. The ceremony would be held in the same gazebo where he'd proposed, now decorated with thousands of white lights and cascading flowers. "The car is here," Sarah announced, peeking through the curtains. As Elena's maid of honor, she'd been instrumental in planning the wedding, but more importantly, she'd been a source of unwavering support throughout Elena's journey back to love. "Are you ready?" Victoria asked, tears already shining in her eyes. "I've been ready for 11 years, Elena said. The drive to the ceremony site was short, just from the mansion to the garden, but it gave Elena a moment to collect her thoughts. She looked out at the guests assembled on the lawn, friends and family who'd traveled from all over the country to celebrate their union. Alex's MIT classmates sat beside Elena's Duke sorority sisters. Tech industry leaders mingled with old Connecticut families. The boy from the wrong side of town and the girl from the right side of town had built bridges between worlds that had once seemed incompatible. "I'm so proud of you," her father said as he helped her out of the car. "You followed your heart, and it led you home." "Thank you, Dad," Elena said, squeezing his hand. "For everything. For raising me to be strong enough to fight for what I want. And for finally having the wisdom to get out of your way," Richard added with a self-deprecating smile. The music began, and Elena felt her heart race with anticipation. She'd imagined this moment so many times, but nothing had prepared her for the reality of it. She walked down the aisle on her father's arm, but her eyes were only for Alex. He stood at the altar in a perfectly tailored black tuxedo, his dark hair catching the sunlight, his eyes never leaving hers. The boy she'd fallen in love with at 17 was now a man of 34, successful and confident, but when he looked at her, she saw the same love, the same wonder, the same absolute devotion that had taken her breath away all those years ago. The ceremony was beautiful but brief. They'd both waited long enough for this moment. When the minister asked if anyone objected to their union, Elena's heart skipped a beat, but the garden remained silent except for the gentle rustle of leaves and the distant sound of birds singing. "Alexander Kane," the minister said, "do you take Elena Whitmore to be your lawfully wedded wife, to love and cherish, in sickness and in health, for richer or poorer, for better or worse, as long as you both shall live?" "I do," Alex said, his voice strong and clear, carrying across the garden to every guest. "I absolutely do." "Elena Whitmore, do you take Alexander Kane to be your lawfully wedded husband, to love and cherish, in sickness and in health, for richer or poorer, for better or worse, as long as you both shall live?" Elena's voice was steady, filled with joy and certainty. "I do. I've always done." When Alex lifted her veil to kiss her, Elena felt the final piece of her heart click into place. This was what she'd been waiting for her entire life, not just the wedding, but this moment of perfect unity with the person who truly knew her soul. The reception that followed was a celebration of not just their love, but of the journey that had brought them back together. Alex's best man, his old college roommate Marcus, gave a toast that brought tears to everyone's eyes. "I've known Alex for 15 years, Marcus said, raising his glass. "I've seen him conquer every challenge, achieve every goal, build an empire from nothing. But I've never seen him truly happy until Elena came back into his life. They say true love conquers all, but I think it's more accurate to say that true love endures all. Ladies and gentlemen, to Alex and Elena, may your love continue to endure everything life throws at you." As the evening progressed, Elena found herself dancing with her new husband under the stars, surrounded by the people who mattered most to them. The little girl who'd once been afraid to disappoint her family was now a woman confident in her choices, secure in her love, ready to face whatever came next. "No regrets," Alex whispered in her ear as they swayed to the music. "Only that we waited so long," Elena replied. "But maybe we needed those 11 years to become the people we are now." "Maybe," Alex agreed. "But I promise you this, we're never going to let fear or other people's expectations come between us again." "Never," Elena agreed, sealing the promise with a kiss that tasted like forever. 2 years later, Elena stood in the nursery of their new home, a beautiful estate that perfectly blended Alex's modern sensibilities with her love of classic elegance. She was 8 months pregnant with their first child, her hand resting on her rounded belly as she watched her husband assemble the crib with the same focused determination he brought to everything in his life. "You know we could have hired someone to do that," Elena said, amused by the sight of billionaire Alexander Kane wrestling with furniture instructions. "I want to do it myself," Alex said without looking up. "I want our daughter to sleep in a bed that her father built with his own hands." Elena's heart swelled with love. They'd found out they were having a girl just last month, and Alex had been over the moon. He'd already started talking about teaching her to code, about showing her that she could be anything she wanted to be. "She's going to be spoiled rotten," Elena said, settling into the rocking chair they'd placed by the window. "She's going to be loved," Alex corrected. "There's a difference. And she's going to know that love is worth fighting for," Elena added. "That sometimes the most important battles are the ones we fight for our own happiness." Alex looked up at her, his expression serious. "Do you think we'll be good parents? Do you think we'll know how to give her what she needs?" Elena considered the question, thinking about her own childhood, about the lessons she'd learned from her parents' mistakes and their eventual wisdom. "I think we'll make mistakes. But I think we'll also give her something that took us years to learn. The confidence to trust her own heart. And the knowledge that love isn't about perfection," Alex added. "It's about choosing someone again and again, even when things get difficult." As if on cue, the baby kicked, and Elena laughed. "I think she approves of our parenting philosophy." Alex abandoned the crib and came to kneel beside her chair, placing his hand over hers on her belly. "I love you, little one," he said softly. "I love you, and I love your mama, and I promise to do everything in my power to give you a life filled with love and possibility." Elena ran her fingers through his hair, marveling at how perfectly right this all felt. "What would you tell your 17-year-old self if you could go back?" Alex considered the question seriously. "I'd tell him that everything he's going through is worth it. That the pain, the separation, the years of wondering, it all leads to this moment. I'd tell him that love isn't about being perfect or having all the answers. It's about finding someone who makes you want to be better and never giving up on that person." "What would you tell 17-year-old me?" Elena asked. "I'd tell her that her heart knows what it wants, and she should trust it. I'd tell her that the people who love her want her to be happy, even if they don't always show it the right way. And I'd tell her that the boy she loves is going to wait for her, no matter how long it takes." Elena felt tears prick her eyes. "I wish we could tell them that it all works out in the end." "I think they'd figure it out eventually," Alex said with a smile. "We're pretty stubborn when we want something." "Speaking of stubborn," Elena said, "your mother called today. She wants to know if we've decided on a name yet." Alex groaned. She suggested about 50 names in the past week. I think she's more excited about this baby than we are. That's impossible, Elena said. But I do have an idea about the name. Oh. I want to name her Hope, Elena said quietly. Hope Elena Whitmore Kane. Because that's what she represents. Hope for the future, hope that love really can conquer all, hope that the next generation will be braver than we were. Alex's eyes filled with tears. Hope. I love it. It's perfect. As they sat together in the nursery, Elena reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. The scared 17-year-old who'd let her father's fears override her own heart seemed like a different person now. The woman she'd become was confident, secure in her love, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we'd been braver back then? Elena asked. If we'd fought harder for each other? Sometimes, Alex admitted. But then I think about who we are now, what we've built together, and I can't imagine it being any better than this. Even after all the pain we went through? Especially after all the pain we went through, Alex said firmly. It taught us not to take this for granted. It taught us that love is something you have to fight for, something you have to protect and nurture. Elena nodded, understanding. The years of separation had been difficult, but they'd also been formative. They'd each become fully realized individuals before coming back together, and that made their reunion even more meaningful. I have something for you, Alex said suddenly, reaching into his pocket. He pulled out a small wrapped package. Alex, you don't need to keep buying me things, Elena protested, but she was smiling. This isn't something I bought, Alex said. This is something I've been saving for the right moment. Elena unwrapped the package to find a small, leather-bound journal. She opened it and gasped. It was filled with letters, all addressed to her, all written in Alex's careful handwriting. I wrote to you, Alex said quietly. Every year on the anniversary of our first date. I never sent them, but I couldn't stop writing them. I wanted to tell you about my life, about what I was feeling, about how much I missed you. Elena flipped through the pages, seeing glimpses of Alex's journey through the years. His graduation from MIT, his first job, his early business successes, his struggles with loneliness and doubt. All of it addressed to her. All of it written with the hope that someday, somehow, she'd be able to read it. This is the most beautiful gift anyone has ever given me, Elena said, tears streaming down her face. To know that you were thinking of me all those years, that you never stopped loving me. I couldn't stop, Alex said simply. You were part of me, Elena. Even when I thought I'd lost you forever, you were still part of me. And now? Now you're my whole world, Alex said, leaning over to kiss her. You and Hope and whatever other children we might have. You're my family, my future, my everything. As the sun set over their new home, Elena realized that their story had come full circle. The boy from the wrong side of town and the girl from the right side of town had found their way back to each other, not as teenagers driven by passion and fear, but as adults who understood the true value of love. They'd learned that love wasn't about being perfect or having all the answers. It was about choosing each other every day, about building something together that was stronger than either of them could create alone. And as their daughter kicked gently in Elena's belly, as if reminding them that their love story was just beginning its next chapter, Elena knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. The scared 17-year-old who'd once let others make her choices was gone forever, replaced by a woman who knew her own heart and had the courage to follow it.